Welcome into Week 7 edition of the Fantasy Football Universe. We are switching it up a little bit. We are jumping into a ranking show for this week, trying our hand on that, see how that's going to go. It is myself, Jesse Muller, aka J Muller 5, with my co-host Jeremy Shulin, FF_Rebel. How you doing today, Jeremy?
Tired of shit, man. It's just been a rough one. Getting ready, packing, doing everything that needs to be done, and been sick for the last 2 days. Whole family been sick, so just doing everything I normally do and being sick on top of it, and getting ready to go see the Pats, Jags. Woo, this is like the Craig Robinson meme, like, yay, where he's like gritting his teeth, yay. Big Pats fan, but yeah, at least we have Drake May to look forward to. Otherwise, there's going to be a lot of dumpsters on fire in this one, but hopefully the rookies May and Polk and BTJ on the other side show us a little something just to get us excited about it in London this weekend.
I mean, yeah, it's been an adventure for both the Jaguars and it's the Pats, but it should be a fun, entertaining game nonetheless. So we'll jump into this. So we're gonna jump into our fun. Oh, sorry about that. Turn my phone. We're gonna jump into our quarterback rankings this week and who we have and what we are doing. So, Jeremy, why don't we kick this off and talk about why you have Jaden Daniels as your quarterback one on the week?
Yes, sir. Jaden Daniels has been amazing this week, but it's in this season. He's far outperformed what we expected of him, what we expected of the Washington offense. But this is less about Jaden Daniels and more about his opponent, the Carolina Panthers. The Carolina Panthers are absolutely abysmal on defense. We've seen it time and time again. They continue to hemorrhage points on the scoreboard. They continue to hemorrhage fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks. And what we've seen from Jaden Daniels in the past few weeks has been pretty good. He's got that Lamar-esque efficiency going for him and really just kind of lighting it up. Even when he has down weeks in the last 2 weeks, he's still the quarterback 12 and quarterback 11. We talk about this all the time. He's got that safe rushing floor. So he's got the high floor, but he's also got the high ceiling. Last 2 weeks were Cleveland and Baltimore, barely a top 12 quarterback. But this week, he's got it way, way easier against Carolina. I think Terry McLaurin eats. I think the running backs eat in this one. Zach Ertz should have another great game. I mean, this is going to be a fantasy bonanza for Washington. Jaden Daniels, QB1. Let's go.
Yeah, I'm with you. And it's like they more get gashed on the running game, and that's what Jaden Daniels provides, right? So I think I think they give up like 18 points a game to quarterbacks. So it's like they're bottom 12. But yeah, the rushing is really what got them in there. So I like it. It's a little bit spicy, but that Carolina defense, they bleed fantasy points everywhere. So it's really hard to argue with this. All right. So let's talk about the number 2 quarterback, Jalen Hurts going against the Giants. Why is he your second ranked quarterback this week?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at my rankings, the way I have it, the top 3 quarterbacks are high, volume rushing quarterbacks. And the Giants, we saw them play much better last week against Cincinnati. The problem is Cincinnati's offensive line is absolutely terrible. Now, Philadelphia has some offensive line issues of their own for sure, but they are, even with Dallas Goedert out, Grant Calcaterra showed he's in our rankings. He's way higher than he should be, but he showed that he's capable. And of course, you have AJ Brown and Devonta Smith both back. I think Jalen Hurts finds his way in the passing game against the Giants, is able to use his escapability and his legs to pick up yardage on the ground and score. We know he has this upside in him. I think he gets there this week against the Giants.
Yeah, I'm with you. It just more features because they're like missing their tackle, Jordan Mailata. Like it's just gonna be more dependent on Jalen Hurts, and we've seen it time and time again. Like when he needs to, when he's healthy, like that scrambling element is there. He looks so much better than last year. So yeah, I get it. He's a very, very high floor play, and the offense is gonna run through him this week. So I like that. Yeah. All right, let's jump on to your third quarterback. And as I'm stalling because I'm missing it, there it is. It is Lamar Jackson going against the Tampa Bay Bucks, who've kind of turned the corner a little bit, but it's Lamar Jackson. It's really hard to rank him outside the top 3-4 quarterbacks each week.
Oh yeah,
you know what it is. Why don't you wax politically about Lamar for a sec?
I think he's probably QB1 across the board in a lot of people's rankings. And he's certainly been the QB1 on this season. I think even after a slightly down week last week as well. If he's not 1, he's 2. But Lamar is still getting it done on the ground. He's averaging about 10 carries a game. He's averaging what looks to be like with a massive game in week 1, probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 70 to 75 rushing yards per game. But if you take out week 1, it's more like 60 yards. Who cares? That's elite for a quarterback. Again, high floor, but high ceiling as well. 2 weeks ago against Cincinnati, threw 4 touchdowns. I don't expect that to happen at Tampa, but Mark Andrews seems to be getting back into the mix. Isaiah Likely is always at Charlie Kolar. They got these tight ends, really starting to step up across the board. And, as much as it pains me, Mark Andrews isn't that high-end tight end we wanted him to be, but they're spreading that around at the position, which is nice. So Lamar isn't suffering from a passing aspect. And then Zay Flowers has been absolutely going off in at least half of the games this year. Tampa Bay now is interesting. They're getting a little bit healthier in the secondary, but it's still difficult for them. Their defense is still reeling, and we know they can put up points. Especially given how bad Baltimore's passing defense is. So I think this game is probably trending to a shootout. We've got some high-end fantasy assets in this one, so I love Lamar.
Yeah, he's on pace to be the first quarterback to go for 4,000 passing and over 1,000 rushing yards. Like, he's second EPA per dropback. It's wheels up for Lamar in this matchup. Like, I think both these quarterbacks, him and Baker, who we'll get to in a little bit here, are very high in your rankings for that particular reason. All right, let's move on to our next quarterback, and that will be Jordan Love going up against the Houston Texans defense, which is taking a step forward this year. It looks pretty good. Mm-hmm. Why is Jordan Love a top 4 asset for you this week?
Man, he's just got all of his weapons back. We saw it happen last week. And in fact, in the last 3 weeks, he's finished as the QB 2, 14, and 3 on the week. So we know Jordan Love is an elite talent. We want to see him get there with either with volume or with extreme efficiency. We've seen him do it both ways, but really it's the fact that Christian Watson is healthy at the moment. I don't want to jinx anything. I'll knock on wood here. But Romeo Doubs is available. Jaden Reed is who he is. I mean, the Packers are getting healthy at just the right time, and they're starting to click, right? Jordan Love is able to throw an elite level of touchdowns. This is what we wanted to see from Joe Burrow, from CJ Stroud, that we haven't totally seen yet. It's just putting up these consistent 3 to 4 touchdown games. And Jordan Love has shown the ability to do that. He did it against Minnesota a few weeks ago, so I'm certainly not scared of the Houston defense. He's got that ability to do it again. The Green Bay is scoring points in boatloads. I think we can expect another 30-plus point outing from them. And if they do that, it hasn't been Josh Jacobs scoring the touchdowns. He has 1 on the season. So I think Jordan Love does it again. He's a top 5 option for sure.
Yeah, it's interesting how their line is kind of set up for more pass protecting than it is like road grading. And we kind of see that when they get down the end zone. It's like, we don't need to feature Josh Jacobs. And he is good with the attempts, just not working out. But yeah, it's Jordan Love's show, and it happens every week. Like, it's Jordan Love just continues to put up fantasy points. We're going to jump into your 5th ranked quarterback, and that's guy going against Lamar this week. That's Baker Mayfield of Tampa Bay. He's playing out of his mind so far this year to make the case he's up there. So yeah, why is he a top 5 option for you?
Yeah, he's finished as a top 5 quarterback 4 of 6 games this season. Absolutely ridiculous. In a 5th game, he was the QB 7. So Baker Mayfield has been absolutely dealing. He had 1 down game against an elite Denver defense with Patrick Surtain healthy. Otherwise, he's been money. And, they put up 51 points on the New Orleans Saints defense, and we were worried about Mike Evans. I mean, it turns out we should have been worried about Mike Evans, but everybody else ate. So, look, Mike Evans, we know that he gets shut down at times against these elite corners. We've seen it at least twice, maybe 3 times this year. This is not going to be one of those games. Mike Evans has the potential to go off and nuclear. Chris Godwin's going to be involved. Baltimore just can't cover anyone in that secondary. And what I really love about Baker is they have the run game going. But Sean Tucker, I think he's going to be involved, especially if Rachaad White sits in the passing game. And as long as they have that option out of the backfield, I think that really just helps elevate Baker's ceiling. So I think he's going to go off again. 4 touchdowns, maybe not, but at least 2, I would say probably 3 in this one. It's going to be a shootout.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun because he's got to keep pace with Lamar, and we've seen that he can continually do it. He's been super efficient. He hasn't had a ton of pass attempts, but he really hasn't need to, right? So if that just keeps up, and the Baltimore defense, to your point, is just atrocious. So yeah, I like Baker a lot this week. The next quarterback's a little bit interesting is Josh Allen at 6, and based on consensus, we've seen kind of guys push him to a back end QB1.
Yep.
Because of this Titans defense, why do you still have Josh Allen as a top 6 asset this week?
I did that. First of all, I did that last week with Josh Allen. He only finishes the QB5 against the Jets. Tennessee is not the New York Jets, even a reeling New York Jets defense. I don't think they get in the Bills. I don't think they get held to just 23 points as they have been the last 2, 3, 4. They've been held under 23 points for the last month. So I don't think that happens here. We know the addition of Amari Cooper is here. How much he will play, we will see. But if James Cook is healthy, I don't know. If Ray Davis can continue to step into that role, if they can figure out the offense. Yes, the Tennessee defense is decent, but they're not the New York Jets. And Josh Allen continues to get there when he gets in the end zone on the ground. He's finished twice as the QB1 and last week as the QB5. So he's right there for me. I'm not scared of the down weeks. I'm going to continue to bet on the upside and the talent.
Yeah, and I think the addition of Amari Cooper gives him that wide receiver one he's been looking for, and it should take them to the next level. I get it. The Titans matchup is gross for the wide receivers, but you just got to bet on the wide receiver one having an incompetent piece. Like the upgrade from Keon Coleman to Amari Cooper is massive for that offense,
Insane.
Right? So, yeah, he boosts Josh Allen from basically borderline to QB1 each week. So, yeah, I'm 100% with you in those rankings. Let's jump into your QB7 because that's a little bit more interesting. That's Kirk Cousins going against a beleaguered Seahawks defense, and I would know because I'm a Seahawks fan. Excuse me. Why don't you talk a little bit about why you have Kirk Cousins as top 7 asset this week?
Atlanta at home. I just think they're absolutely going to stomp the Seattle defense. It's not Seattle's fault. They had kind of a tough build in the offseason, didn't super address their needy spots on defense, and then they've just been injured and ineffective all over the field. Now, the secondary had been playing well. I think there's one of your safeties is out this week. Is that right? Or is it for the season? What's his name again?
It's been rough for the Seahawks defense. They're missing still quite a few guys. So, yes, to your point, yes, they are missing some back end pieces as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So I just think Kirk is going to eat here. We've seen what Drake London can do. He's been a mid to high end wide receiver 2 weekly. I think that's his floor at this point, especially if we look at what they have: Seattle, Tampa, Dallas over the next 3 weeks. I think he's got the opportunity to even elevate that further. Bijan Robinson's being used properly. Tyler Algier is still a nice piece. This offense is going to cook. They're going to score a ton of points. The only issue for Kirk Cousins is if those running backs take away some of those touchdowns, right? Because he's not a rushing quarterback. I don't think that happens this week. I think Seattle kind of tightens it up a little bit or enough to make Kirk pass, and he's going to do so all over them. Fire up Kyle Pitts once again, 3 weeks in a row. Let's go.
Yeah, these two quarterbacks have the highest projected passing yards over under of the week, both of them. Kirk Cousins is first 268, Geno Smith is second 262. So yeah, it's gonna be a shootout. We got over under a 51. Like you want to start Kirk Cousins.
Love it.
I love that ranking this week. It's a spicy but well deserved.
Yeah.
Now let's go to another guy who is battling against your quarterback 4, Jordan Love. It's the CJ Stroud going against the Packers defense. Like we know what CJ Stroud brings. He's quarterback 8. Why is he quarterback 8 as opposed to some of the other guys in that range?
It's been really tough for Stroud. He hasn't really had the touchdowns. Last week, he threw 3 touchdowns and still finished outside the top 12 quarterbacks. So that's pretty ridiculous. He's good for about 15 rushing yards a game, but he hasn't scored at all on the ground. So it's really a volume issue for him. With Joe Mixon back in the fold, it gets scary for CJ Stroud because this team can win close games as they have in week 4 and week 5 against really bad defenses. And then week 6, they absolutely blew out the New England Patriots for some reason. So I don't know which team to expect here, but I am going to go ahead and bet on the fact that Green Bay's defense hasn't been the daunting Green Bay defense of old. They do have those middle linebackers flying around out there. At the same time, you can beat the secondary. I think that this offensive line can hold up against the Green Bay rush. So I like CJ Stroud to get there, even though it's been really tough for him so far this year.
Yeah, they've dealt with a little bit of issues, still on Nico, but we saw Tank Dell kind of explode that last week in his projection. So I like CJ Stroud this week. It's not the worst matchup in the world, and you expect the touchdowns to come for Stroud. So I'm with you in that ranking. I think it's a good spot for him. Let's go to your quarterback 9, your boy Sammy Ballgame, going up against the Detroit defense. Talk about Sam Darnold and why you have him as a top 9 asset this week.
Biggest thing here, number one, we talk about the fact that Kevin O'Connell is the guy that I'm betting on over Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold is the Brock Purdy distributor. But secondly, the fact that they've had 2 weeks to prepare for this Detroit defense, who absolutely just put on a show last week against a really terrible Dallas team. Minnesota is not Dallas. I know Aaron Jones is unlikely to play in this game. We'll see what happens over the next couple of days and how that plays out. But I don't mind the combination of Cam Akers and Ty Chandler, only because that means that Sam Darnold is going to be throwing the ball a ton, because those guys aren't getting anything done on the ground against this fearsome rush defense, even with Aiden Hutchinson out. So I just think they're going to need to throw. I think Detroit is going to be able to put up points on this defense like few offenses have been able to outside of Green Bay. And I think, they're going to have to throw for a number of reasons, and Sam Darnold is going to deliver.
Yeah, he's been really, really good passer rating as well. Though he's like 103, so he's a top 6 asset in like the quarterback passing. And it makes sense, like that offense, the skill position players they have, and like it's like a week or two before we get Hawkinson back on top of it as well. So it's just wheels up for Darnold. Like I think you've been bullish on him, and it's been well earned for Darnold against this Lions defense. Yeah, I like it. He's well in that range. Now the next guy is going up against still a good defense, and this is Joe Burrow against the Cleveland defense. On the flip side, like that offense is atrocious. So I wonder, can Joe Burrow get to the top 10 like ranking versus just the Cleveland offense that can't do anything?
Yeah, it's fair. I think we've only seen Joe Burrow kind of go off when he's had to against really good offenses with really good defenses, right? He didn't necessarily go off against Kansas City. That is a really good defense, but he did finish as the QB 10. He didn't necessarily go off against Carolina, but he did finish at the QB 10. The 2 games that he went off was Washington, great offense, terrible defense, and Baltimore, great offense, terrible defense. We don't have that situation here. Like you said, we have a terrible offense and a great defense. I still am going to continue to trust in Joe Burrow. I mean, we saw the flashes last week. The problem is protection. I really do worry about that against Cleveland, but this is not a dumb coaching staff. This is not a dumb quarterback. We know what we need to do to figure this out. I wonder if they have the pieces in order to utilize the ultra short passing game, but I also haven't seen a ton of kind of screen work and bubbles to chase in the last few weeks. But T. Higgins is an absolute animal, so they have the weapons here. And I think Joe Burrow's ranking for me this week is more a product of the matchups of the other guys and not necessarily a product of him there. So he sneaks into the top 10, but we'll talk about a few other guys here. It's either unreliable quarterback or a difficult matchup.
Yeah, once we get past your quarterback 11, and that being Geno Smith, it gets really sketchy with a lot of these guys and matchup dependent, or it's guys that we're banking on rookies to take a step forward. So let's jump into your quarterback 11, Geno Smith. Going up against the Falcons, we just talked about, it's a shootout. Why is he a top 12 asset for you as opposed to some of the other guys?
Yeah, Geno, like you mentioned, he's got the matchup. We know he has the weapons. Everybody's relatively healthy. Ben Grubb, Ryan.
Grubb.
I always want to call him Ben. I don't know why. Sorry, Ryan. Ryan Grubb has been, operating a functional offense. The problem is they've lost their last 3 games. This game here is a totally winnable game, but they're really going to need to bring it with the offense. I know that they know this. It's really a question of, will Atlanta kind of get home against this atrocious offense? It's possible, or offensive line. It's possible. But I think that, they need to scheme things up better. Kenneth Walker and utilizing the run game to, utilize the passing game, and the volume is there for Geno. 56, 40, and 52 pass attempts over his last 3 games. That's absolutely insane. Sam Howell level volume. Geno is going to get there, so I'm not worried about him. He's thrown 1 touchdown in every single game this year. That's not sustainable. That's going to go up. It's going to go up this week, even though Atlanta has a corner and a safety who are playing out of their mind. They don't have much else beyond that. So they have the weapons to spread it around and let it fly, and Geno's going to do that this week.
Yeah, he's on pace to throw over 700 times this year, which is just an absurd number. I don't think he's going to get there at that rate, but yeah, he's going to lead the league. He potentially could lead the league in passing yards this year. So if you made that bet earlier in the year, you were looking strong because that offense line it's atrocious. But yeah, I love Geno this week. He's really carrying that team on his back and doing everything he can for it. So and it's the highest projected total of the league. So yeah, I'm with you. What gets interesting here is Kyler Murray at quarterback 12 going up against our Chargers defense that has actually been surprisingly very good. The offense has struggled. Tell me why you still have Kyler as top 12 option this week.
Help me remember who the Chargers played last week, because I don't think they had a very good game.
Played the Broncos.
Was it Denver?
Yeah. The Broncos defense.
Yeah. And Bo Nix had himself a pretty good game last week as well, just kind of running around. I mean, the thing is that the Chargers are able to kind of corral the run, but they're also able to defend the pass. But rushing quarterbacks seem to give them a little bit of trouble. They don't necessarily have the linebacker play that's ideal for someone of Kyler Murray's skill set. So we need to see this from Kyler. He needs to have a breakout game. For fantasy heads, we're kind of struggling with this. The problem is, he probably won't have his number one target in Marvin Harrison Jr., but I think that's probably a little bit better for his fantasy prospects, because it means he's going to need to take the game in his hands a little bit more. And this game has one of two outcomes. Either, Kyler Murray runs for 100 yards and 2 touchdowns, or this Cardinals team gets blown away. So there's one of two outcomes. I'm going to bet on Kyler just doing a lot with his legs, and he's the rushing quarterback with the high floor. We look at the guys below this, which I don't think we'll talk too much about all of them, but Purdy, Stafford, Mahomes, Goff, right? As you go down the list, you see a majority of these guys in the late teens. They do not have the rushing upside, and we know that Kyler Murray can lead the quarterbacks in rushing on any given week.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. Like, he's gonna just feed our guy Trey McBride. Like, I think that's how this offense works. It's gonna fluctuate them, and he's gonna run a lot, and he has to do it. Interesting enough, the Bo Nix offense had like 22 passing yards at the half or something just absurd last week, and then they did garbage time. I think Kyler can give you garbage time scoring, even if they're not able to do it. So it's like they're 2-point dogs in this game. I think he can get there against a good Chargers defense, but I'm with you.
Yep.
Let's jump to Brock Purdy in a really bad matchup against the Kansas City Chiefs defense. Their defense
so
is
bad
with Spagnuolo.
So
but
bad.
like, it's really just like the immovable object, or however you say that phrase. I'm blanking on it. The force meets the immovable object. Like, one of those two has to win in this game, and I'm curious to see if the 49ers offense can do it, because their defense has struggled. So you have Purdy right there at quarterback 13. Why? I think my question is, why above guys like, who will get you next? May, Richardson, Stafford, and Mahomes. What puts him above that group for you?
I don't trust those guys. That's really what it is. This is not a Brock Purdy situation. This is a Kyle Shanahan situation. I think he's going to figure it out enough to get Purdy there as a high-end QB2. He has most weeks, right? I'll check the stats on that. But someone like Drake May in a second start, I love Drake May, but we don't know how London's going to affect him. We don't know exactly if like what we saw in week 1 is anomalous. Now there's tape on Drake May. Jacksonville didn't need to travel this week, so did they actually get in the lab and figure something out? I don't know. I don't think those things will happen. I think I'm pretty high on Drake May this week as my QB 14 as well. That said, at the same time, I think that that's more of an unreliable situation, whereas Brock Purdy has had these high spike games of QB5, QB6. Granted, they were against much easier defenses and much easier pass defenses. But Kansas City, it's really just the amount of weapons. We haven't seen Brandon Ayuk get going this year. Maybe this is the game that Ayuk absolutely goes off and not only puts up the production, but also gets in the end zone, because Kansas City can play D, but they can't cover everybody.
Yeah, it's just, they have the skill position advantage. Like, basically every week they have all of their guys basically except CMC. So we'll see how it goes. And the rushing game is probably going to be an issue, because like, we don't know who's going to be their starting running back. So I think it's going to be more Purdy. And he leads the league like in air yards completed like this season, like 9.1 per attempt. So like, he's been his best self this year. I get it. Maybe the fantasy points have not come, but Brock Purdy's been awesome. Let's talk about our boy Drake May at quarterback 14. And I love this ranking. I think you could even boost it higher, to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
That Jags just team in general is just on the struggle bus. And May showed it in week 1 against a really good Houston Texans defense. Like, hey guys, like, I'm for real. So is it the rushing element that leads you to him a quarterback 14 ranking, or just the overall ability of Drake May as a passer on top of it too?
It's both, man. Like as a Patriots fan, I'm really tempering my expectations here. I'm trying not to get to like lose my
Hope
shit,
it. Hope
basically.
it. Yeah.
But at the same time, 20 for 33, 243 through the air and 3 touchdowns. He had the 2 picks, but he's a rookie. Fine. There with Houston, there was the opportunity for garbage time with Jacksonville. I do not expect that to be the case for Drake May. At the
Mhm.
same time, the rushing is going to be there. He only took off 5 times last week. I think he runs more this week, getting a little more comfortable with the idea of running. I think he's going to find more, or I know he's going to find more open space in that Jacksonville secondary to kind of deliver the ball. And he had some really nice passes. They schemed up some really nice plays as well, with some guys putting together not only a few yak plays like Demario Douglas, but also had a nice kind of just deep pass into the end zone to Butte for the touchdown. So look, if Polk gets more involved, as I expect he will, I'm not sure on Bourne's status, but they got a lot of guys that they're rotating in there, and if Ramondre Stevenson plays, I think this offense can really cook. If he doesn't, that just means Gibson is out there more, and he's a little bit more dynamic in the passing game, at least providing another option that terrible defense has to cover. So I like May a lot.
Yeah, me too. I think that's a really good one. We're running up against time limit here a little bit
Yep.
on the show, so we're gonna kind of group a few of these guys together as we move on. So we're gonna go Anthony Richardson, quarterback 15, Matthew Stafford, quarterback 16, Patrick Mahomes, quarterback 17, and Jared Goff, quarterback 18. Kind of pick which guy of that group you want to talk about and why they are ranked in that section of the rankings.
Yeah, it's really just their schedules here and who they're playing. I think Matthew Stafford is the interesting case here at 16. Will Cooper Cup play or not? He's looking good and trending that way, given what I've seen of the practice tape, but we just don't know. If they're rolling out Whittington and Demarcus Robinson and Tutu Atwell, I think Stafford suffers and he kind of falls a few spots. If Cooper Cup plays, I think he has the opportunity to get up into that back end QB1. So I'm kind of hedging my bets there and putting him at QB 16. With the other guys, Richardson, I don't know. Mahomes, these guys are all disappointments. Jared Goff, I like, but a tough Minnesota defense this week. It should be a different story than it was last week.
Yeah, you can kind of make the case for any of these guys, whichever way you want to lean. I think if you want to chase the upside of Richardson, like I get it. Stafford, it's the Raiders' defense is atrocious, man. Like they're just hashtag not
Horrible.
good at football all across the board. So if we get cut back, I really like Stafford a lot this week compared to Mahomes going up against the 49ers defense, which can be had. But yeah, I'm with you on that. Let's kind of go to the next tier of rankings you have, and that's basically getting into the Andy Dalton going against Washington at 19. We have Daniel Jones, the rushing upside at quarterback 20. Aaron Rodgers at quarterback 21, Trevor Lawrence at quarterback 22, and Bo Nix kind of rounding out this tier at quarterback 23. Who kind of stands out to you of that group of quarterbacks?
Yeah, the only question again, it's Andy Dalton. It's just like Matt Stafford. It's the aging passing quarterback with the potential for missing, his number one target. So if Deontay Johnson plays this week, Andy Dalton probably moves up a few spots against a bad Washington D. If he does not play, which fortunately looking like it could be trending that direction, if Deontay is out, then he just doesn't have the pieces there to get it done. So I'll move him down. So Andy Dalton, and then Aaron Rodgers. He got Devontae Adams back, so we talk about him quickly. But against a Pittsburgh defense, I expect him to play better. I expect the offense to do better, but it is the first game. I think they win this game, but I think they win this game on the ground, just relying on their two backs while they figure it out through the air.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's what it is. I think he's the most interesting of this group because he gets Devontae Adams and kind of like I think their connection really just elevates this offense in general. So I think Rodgers is the most interesting one. Like it should be Trevor Lawrence's week, but you know what that is. Like it's been such a disappointment there. It's hard to really count on that against a decent Patriots defense. I think those guys offer a lot of kind of what you're looking for. You can kind of dictate your ranking based on them. It all makes sense why they're there. I think the next kind of our final tier, which is basically, I'll get into it. We have Herbert at quarterback 24 going against the Cardinals. We have Spencer Rattler, who I really hope no one's starting at quarterback 25 going against Denver. That matchup's a nightmare. He's got the worst projected passing total of the week. We have Russell Wilson starting against the Jets defense, who's a really good defense, and Deshaun Watson, who's just been abysmal. And I don't really want to talk about O'Connell or Tyler Huntley or those guys. I think the cutoff really is Watson at quarterback 27. Who of this group, kind of the last tier of kind of guys you can make the case for to stream this week, would be the most bullish on this week? It's rough. It's rough.
I guess it's Deshaun Watson. I mean, he has but he's missing his best target, right? So,
Mhm.
no, it's not Deshaun Watson. It's crap. I guess it's Justin Herbert. I mean, the fact that he's playing the Arizona Cardinals, the fact that we've seen Quentin Johnston be a lot better this season, Joshua Palmer step up. They have enough weapons. We know they're going to want to run the crap out of the ball. But if Arizona wants to, all of a sudden play defense on the goal line, they could sneak a few touchdown passes. And Justin Herbert, I'm going to pull it up. Let's see if he's thrown multiple touchdown passes this year in any game. One game with multiple touchdown passes for Justin Herbert. He's down bad. That was against Carolina. So Arizona is about as bad as Carolina. It's possible he can get to multiple touchdown passes. If he does, he'll outperform this QB 24 ranking. But yeah, I'm not really high on any of these guys, obviously.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to kind of wrap up the end of those quarterback rankings. If you're in that tier of quarterback, it's just like you're just kind of hoping and praying at this point. I think to your point, Herbert going against the Cardinals is kind of the best option of those. I think let's kind of jump into our tight end rankings and hit this guy real quick. We'll talk about it. And look at there he is, just beautiful looking. Oh my goodness, I still got the thing scrolling at the bottom, but we know why we love Mr. George Kittle, but it is what it is. So I think it's interesting. We'll kind of jump into our tight ends. All right, and we are jumping into our tight end rankings. As you can see right here, we have Mr. George Kittle on top, just because he's freaking George Kittle. We love George Kittle. But we're going to kind of get into our tight end tiers and the tight end tiers that you specifically have, Jeremy. So let's talk about our tier 1 tight ends. That would be Brock Bowers going up against the Rams at tight end 1, and then Trey McBride, tight end 2, going up against Arizona. Why are they your tight end 1, tight end 2 in their own tier?
Yeah, Brock Bowers has not had the target consistency, the quarterback consistency all season, but now he doesn't have a number 1 wide receiver to take targets away. It works both ways because there will be more targets funneled to him, but also more coverage, attracted to him at the same time. But Brock Bowers is just so damn good. The last 2 weeks, again, all without Devonta Adams. I think it was the last 3 weeks, but over the last 2 weeks, 12 targets and 10 targets, put up 97 and 71 yards, put up 1 touchdown in one of those games against Denver. So he's just going to be a target magnet. We know he's good for at least 6 receptions, at least 60 yards weekly. And if he gets in the end zone, he's easily in that tight end 1 conversation. So Brock Bowers is just an absolute animal. And going up against the Los Angeles Rams defense that has not looked good, was not projected to be good. They're still not good. And the safety play has been a little bit better, especially last game. That said, I mean, this is just not a good defense. So I think Brock Bowers eats as much as he can with Aiden O'Connell, a quarterback.
Yeah, 100%. Like you've seen the on and off splits with, Bowers in particular without Adams. He's really just like pushing 30% target share. It's like, it's absurd stuff from those guys. So it really makes sense why those guys are your top 2 tight ends of this week. Like they're awesome players in awesome positions. So yeah, the young tight ends are back. At least a few of them are. Let's go to tier 2. You're kind of your tier 2 of tight end rankings. That involves George Kittle going up against Kansas City at tight end 3. Your tight end 4 is Travis Kelce going up against San Francisco. And your tight end 5, which might be the spiciest, but I actually really like this call, is Evan Ingram going up against the New England Patriots. So what kind of makes those guys your tier 2 of tight ends for this week?
Yeah, I think I saw a lot of people had Kittle at tight end 1 this week. I get it. He's been scoring touchdowns. He's been going off. I just think that Kansas City defense, they know what they need to stop. They need to stop Debo. They need to stop Kittle. Not necessarily in that order. So I think he gets limited. He's still my tight end 3. So, we're not super down on George Kittle this week. But Travis Kelce, again, in a tough matchup. These guys, Kittle and Kelce, have been necessary. But let's talk about Evan Ingram for a second. He came back and absolutely dominated. 10 targets, 10 receptions, 102 yards, did not score, as Evan Ingram tends to not do. But every time Evan Ingram gets in the end zone, it's a monster game for him. New England defense, New England was absolutely just getting gassed completely by Houston. We saw it with Joe Mixon on the ground through the air. We saw it with who else was it? Was it Cam Akers? No, there was somebody else back there. Dameon Pierce. Dameon Pierce was gashing them as well. We know that you can get over on this New England run defense. In fact, I saw a crazy stat that since Bentley, first names are killing me these days. Juwan? No. the hell is Bentley's first name? Anyway, a middle linebacker for the New England Patriots. Since he's been out with injury, they've given up like 150% more rushing yards than normal. Some sort of ridiculous stat, proving that they're no longer a good run D because he's now out for the year. So I think New England, they're going to get home on the ground. I like Tank Bigsby a lot. ETN could get back, but that's going to open things up in the passing game, specifically for Evan Ingram over the middle with the play action game. And I think they really utilized that this week. Evan Ingram should have close to a similar line and at least one touchdown this week. So I love him and in London, there's something to be said for the Jags kind of not traveling back to London. They're going to be there for 2 straight weeks. I think they put up a better performance against a worse defense.
Yeah, I think that's a really good call in this weekend. I looked it up because I was not sure what you were talking about. It was Jawan Bentley. It's like
Jawan, yeah. I had it right. Yeah.
Yeah, you were right. Yeah, 100%. So yeah, that makes the tier 2, and like it's all 100% why they're there. I think tier 3 is actually really interesting, and this involves the beleaguered, but he's back, kind of, sort of, Kyle Pitts, tight end 6. We have Zach Ertz at tight end 7, which is probably you were definitely higher than consensus on Zach Ertz at tight end 7. Mm-hmm. And tight end 8. So kind of Sam Laporta, and I know we all love Sam Laporta, but like he only had 1 target last week. It makes sense. So
crazy.
Why are these guys your tier 3 of the tight end rankings?
Yeah, the Sam Laporta stuff is really just banking on more targets. I have nothing to go on off of that. That's really just me just kind of hoping that Sam Laporta gets back to form. I mean, Jameson Williams, the thing that's nice about the Minnesota defense is they really provide a pretty good pass rush. That's going to mean that Jared Goff has to rely on his pass catchers closer to the line of scrimmage. JMO has built-in screens for him, but Sam Laporta could be more involved over the middle if Jared Goff is just looking to get rid of the ball a lot more quickly than he has had to. And, maybe we'll see another flea flicker for 50-yard pass to Sam Laporta. I doubt it. But Kyle Pitts, it's really just the matchups for these guys. Pitts against Seattle, he's done 2 weeks in a row. I think he's just going to do it again. There's no reason for him not to. In this game we talked about, it's going to be a shootout. Zach Ertz in a similar situation in Washington against Carolina. He did it last week. I think he's going to go off. It's him and McLaurin and not really any other reliable options outside of Austin Eckler through the air. So I think everybody eats in the passing game this week. Carolina can't do a damn thing about it.
Yeah, their defense is just #bad at football. So, and they're losing guys left and right. It's been a disaster on that side of the ball, and it's probably not going to get any better. So, yeah, it makes sense why you have Zach Ertz there going against them. I think with Laporta in particular, it's just target competition is what it is. So he's 100% there. As fortunately as much as he was tight end 1 going into the dynasty offseason, like it's you got to adjust our rankings on him. So yeah, I'm with you there. Our tight end 4 group is kind of a fun group because you have one of my favorite players, but he's the bottom of this group. But we will get to it. Tucker Kraft at tight end 9 going against Houston. TJ Hawkinson this week, who I get is he good to go? Are you sure he's playing this week?
No.
Okay. So if he's not, we'll drop him out. I have not heard the other way. So if if TJ Hawkinson plays this week, he is your tight end 10. And then your tight end 11 is David Njoku this week. So that's kind of your tier 4 group. And they kind of it makes sense why they are above kind of next group of guys down below. So go ahead and wax politically about these 3 guys that make up your tight end 4 group.
Yeah, we have no clue if TJ Hawkins is going to play. I would lean that he probably isn't, but the way I'm making my rankings at this point, with really just some scattered Thursday practice reports and really only Wednesday practice reports, which you can never rely on, we just have to assume that some of these guys are playing. If TJ Hawkinson plays, he's going to be a top 12 tight end locked in for me, even against a tough matchup against Detroit. At least the Detroit's linebackers are terrible. Their safeties are good, but and Brian Branch is always roaming around back there. But Hawkinson being utilized as first game back. Yes. Tucker Kraft, I do not want to rely on him, especially with whatever sort of injury he's got going on. He might not even play. I think you can organize these guys any way you want, but David Njoku in a really good matchup should be excellent. The problem is his quarterback is still Deshaun Watson, and that's why we have to push him down. He's got the Brock Bowers treatment, except he's not Brock Bowers. As much as I like David Njoku, I have a ton of David Njoku, but he's not Bowers, and so he's not going to be able to overcome a terrible situation the way Bowers is. Cincinnati still has a bunch of athletes on that field, especially at linebacker in the middle of that field. So yeah, I'm a little more concerned about his situation this week, and that's why it's this far down.
Yep, I hear you. Like his over under receiving line is 43 yards, so like it kind of makes sense. It's a little bit lower than Bowers, but yeah, like he's going to get 30+% target share in quite possibly the worst passing attack in the league. So it's just
Yeah.
kind of make it. I like it. I have a little bit higher, but I completely understand why he's at least top 12 options for you. So
Yep.
the next tier is kind of and this is your tier 5 of tight end rankings. This is a group of 4. This involves the one we had really high hopes for, Dalton Kincaid at tight end 12, but with the addition of Amari Cooper, you kind of have to bring him down a little bit because the whole consensus thought processes with Kincaid was he's going to be the volume sponge in this Buffalo passing attack, and it turns out really like they haven't featured him the way we hoped, so it makes sense why he's there. Your tight end 13 is Hunter Henry going up against the Jacksonville defense. Your tight end 14 is another guy who we had high hopes for. That is Mark Andrews. Everyone else is getting there in that Baltimore offense except Mark Andrews, so it makes sense why he's there at tight end 14. And rounding out this tier 5 is Cade Otton, your tight end 15, going up in that same matchup, going up against the Baltimore defense. So how do you feel kind of about this tier 5 of your ranking for tight ends?
Yeah, shitty. I mean, Mark Andrews is supposed to be, the guy we saw last week, right? We saw it in terms of production. He was 3 for 66 and a touchdown that finished him as the tight end 3 on the week. We still are not seeing it in terms of just the eyeball test on the field. Something's wrong. He's not the same guy. He's getting, I guess, a little healthier compared to the absolute like geriatric looking player that we saw in week 1 and 2, right? He could barely move on that football field. Now he's got a little bit of movement. He actually leapt into the air to grab that touchdown and landed, right? And so he showed a little bit of athleticism. This is what we want to see. I think with Baltimore, they don't care. They want to make sure that Andrews is healthy. So that's why we've been seeing those lower snap percentages for him over the course of the year. The problem is they just haven't told us anything. So, I think Mark Andrews has the potential to be that top 3, top 5 tight end weekly. I just don't see it yet. I think we're going to start seeing that potentially into the fantasy playoffs, starting in the double-digit weeks and into the fantasy playoffs after their bye. Mark Andrews will start ramping up. It's not going to happen yet.
Yeah, I think the funniest thing about this is they're playing Tampa Bay this weekend. His old Oklahoma quarterback, Mr. Baker Mayfield, called him a weirdo and said he specifically won't talk to him throughout the season. So it's just a funny little wrinkle to put in there. So yeah, it's just fun stuff when Mark Andrews going to the Baltimore offense. I mean, it's the best offense, or one of the best offenses in the league, so it makes sense. The tier 6 is a much bigger group for you, so we're going to kind of speed through these guys a little bit. The top guy in it is Pat Freiermuth, tight end 16, going up against the Jets on Monday night. We have tight end 17, our boy Colby Parkinson. He's back with the Rams, going up against quite possibly the worst defense in the league, the Las Vegas Raiders. They have just fallen apart. It's been shambles.
Yeah.
Tight end 18 is the other Baltimore pass catcher tight end, Isaiah Likely, going up against Tampa Bay. We have Juwan Johnson, who I think you could make the case for this week because, let's be real, they have no one else on that offense. Their wide receivers are just shot. Going up against a really good Denver defense. And then it gets really interesting. We have Jonnu Smith, tight end 20, going up against Indianapolis. We have Noah Fant, tight end 21, going up with the Seahawks, going up against the Falcons in one of the highest scoring matchups of the week. Theo Johnson going up against the Eagles, tight end 22. And the guy rounding it out, who we kind of talked about earlier in the week, or early in the episode, is Grant Calcaterra, tight end 23, going up against the Giants. So that is a pretty big tier of guys for you in tight end 6. What separates this group of guys versus your tier 7 group, which is really just hope and pray for you?
Yeah, these are this tier 6 group of guys that you just went through are guys that, like, I guess if I have to, the tier 7 group of guys is like I'm like pouring motor oil on my head and lighting myself on fire in the middle of a public square, I guess. But no, this is pretty bad stuff here from tight end 16 to 23. Like you said, Parkinson, if you want to, you can fire him up. But if Cooper Kupp plays, he's going to see 20 targets. Right. So Colby Parkinson, what's left for him after Kyron gets his, after, the secondary targets? Demarcus Robinson will become alive if Cooper Kupp plays, just because he will no longer be the focus of the defense. So, I think it's a totally different situation for him there. Juwan Johnson, I don't know. I don't see it. He's just too boom bust for me. Pat Freiermuth in a difficult matchup. So these are a lot of guys that, like, either through matchup or because they're decent players, like Jonnu Smith is playing the Colts, right? So you might as well fire him up, and he's looked good with Huntley. So yeah, there's just a bunch of guys I don't really want to play, but if I have to, I could talk myself into it.
Yeah, that's kind of what separates these guys is you can kind of make the case for them, and that's why they're there. When you get to the tier 7, it's basically just like we're talking about. I don't think Taysom Hill's playing this week. I think he's out.
Yeah,
But yeah, it's like Taysom Hill, Dalton Schultz. I think Dalton Schultz is the most interesting name of that group because he's going up. He's the starting tight end going up against the Green Bay Packers. It's just tough for him. So I guess in tier 7, the one guy that stands out, who I guess we'll just make the case for, Dalton Schultz. Why is Dalton Schultz all the way down to this group of guys where it's like a lot of guys that are not running all the routes that are kind of like tight end 2s, some of them in that range. So why is Dalton Schultz in tier 7 as opposed to like tier 6 for you?
And because Stephon Diggs came in and totally nuked his value. I mean, Tank Dell, we saw finally look like he got back to most of his form. Another guy dealing with injuries since the offseason, even without Nico Collins. Dalton Schultz hasn't done. I had to scroll up to remember this guy's name. I mean, I'm sure CJ Stroud has to remember his name. Tell me in half PPR what you think the best finish in any week this season for Dalton Schultz has been as a tight end.
It's not good. I know that. Like I will say the usage for him was a lot better than the actual end line performance for him, where it was just like gross. It was just gross. Yeah, so 100% I had to get you there.
What do you think? What do you think his best finish was this
tight
season?
At 18, maybe?
No, 20. Tight end 20. He hasn't cracked the top 20 tight ends in any week this season. Could it happen this week against Green Bay? Sure. I just don't care. The week it'll happen is next week against Indianapolis with no Nico Collins, but it's not going to happen this week. I highly doubt it. And the fact that he's seeing an increase in targets is great, but like you're mentioning, it's not leading to an increase in receptions or production. So I'm out.
Yeah. Like his over under is 37.5 receiving yards. It's kind of is what it is. You really just need him to get a touchdown to get in there. So yeah, his name just stood out among the rest. I think he's the best shot of that group of guys. But yeah, if you're in that range of like tight ends where it's just hope and pray that way. I don't even want to mention the next guys because you all the way down to that group of guys, like you have completely failed. So I think talking about that group kind of rounds it out well. So it is what it is. A tight end where a lot of these guys, like once you get past tight end like 10, it's really just hope with a lot of these guys. It just gets worse than it is. So I think that'll wrap up our quarterback and tight end show for this week. So yeah, I liked a lot of the guys you had rankings. There were good pros and there were good pros against a lot of them. So yeah, it was a fun episode to give us a shot and see how we go from here. But yeah, we'll be jumping into tomorrow to kind of doing the running backs and we'll be doing the wide receivers, the kind of guys that we care about a little bit more. I think the tight ends and quarterbacks were a fun group. So for Jeremy, for myself, that's going to call it quits for this episode of the Week 7 Quarterback and Tight End Ranking Show. So take care, folks. We'll be seeing you later.